What's good, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're jumping into the wildest game of economic chess ever, soybeans in the U.S. China trade war. These tiny beans sparked a billion-dollar showdown between the world's top powers. How did China's soybean boycott slam the U.S. economy? Why did they pick soybeans as their ultimate bargaining chip? And who's checkmating who? China, the U.S., or is Brazil sneaking in to steal the crown? Grab some edamame and let's play this game move by move. First move on the board, why are soybeans the queen of this chess game? China, the world's biggest buyer, snaps up 60% of global soybean trade, 105 million metric tons in 2024. They need these beans to feed 430 million pigs and 6 billion chickens, plus make cooking oil and tofu for 1.4 billion people. The EU, Mexico, and others are big players, but they're way behind China's epic demand. Now, the U.S., the second biggest grower, was shipping 31.7 million tons to China in 2017, worth $12.3 billion. Soybeans were a huge piece of the U.S. economy, $28 billion in exports. Hitting soybeans was like knocking over the king's pawn, shaking both nations to their core. Here's the big question. Why did China use soybeans as a bargaining chip? In 2018, when the U.S. slapped tariffs on Chinese goods, China hit back hard with a 25% tariff on U.S. soybeans. Why soybeans? They were America's top AG export to China, 31.7 million tons, nearly two-thirds of U.S. sales. By cutting off U.S. beans, China aimed to crush American farmers and pressure the U.S. economy. How bad was the hit? U.S. soybean exports to China tanked to 8.2 million tons in 2018, a 74% drop, slashing $9.4 billion in revenue. Farmers faced bankruptcies, and the Chicago Board of Trade, CBOT, saw prices plummet to $8.48 a bushel, down 8.8%. Checkmate move? Not yet. China needed a new supplier, and Brazil was ready to jump in. The U.S. wasn't going down without a fight. How did the U.S. fight back? American farmers pivoted like grandmasters, convincing allies to buy more soybeans to soak up the surplus. The EU, Mexico, Egypt, and Pakistan stepped up big time, boosting U.S. exports to non-China markets from 38% in 2017 to 49% in 2023. Check this out. The EU increased U.S. soybean imports by 30% to $280 million in 2023, 7.2 million tons by 2023. Mexico upped theirs by 20% to 5.8 million tons, Egypt by 43% to 4 million tons, and Pakistan doubled theirs by 108% to 2.5 million tons. This diversification kept the U.S. in the game, with total exports hitting 49.3 million tons in 2023. Not quite a checkmate, but a solid counter move to stabilize the board. While the U.S. and China were battling, Brazil made a sneaky move. Who's winning this chess match? China's pivot to Brazil was a game-changer. Brazil's exports to China jumped from 51.8 million tons in 2017 to 73 million tons in 2023, a 40% surge. By 2024, Brazil's supplying a projected 79.8 million tons, 76% of China's record 105 million ton imports. Brazil's global exports hit 97.2 million tons in 2023, grabbing 52% of the world market. Why? Their double cropping system, 2 harvests a year, pumps out soybeans like crazy, and their beans are $1 a bushel cheaper thanks to lower costs. Brazil's farmers are cashing in, with $38 billion in exports to China in 2023. Brazil's looking like the grandmaster here. Now, let's talk checkmate on prices. How did China's soybean boycott shake the U.S. economy? Let's check the price roller coaster from 2017 to today. The trade war was a wild ride for prices. In 2018, China's tariffs tanked U.S. soybean prices by 8.8% to $8.48 a bushel, while Brazil's prices jumped 7.4% to $9.45 as China bought more from them. By 2019, prices dipped globally due to oversupply, but the 2020 Phase 1 agreement got things back on track, spiking prices to $13 to $14 by 2021 to 2022. Then, Brazil's monster 2023 crop, 97.2 million tons, flooded the market, dragging prices down to $10 by 2024. U.S. prices took a bigger hit, dropping 22.3% in 2024, while Brazil's fell 23.7%, but stayed cheaper by about $1 a bushel. By 2025, Prices are creeping up, $10.25 for the US, $9.25 for Brazil. But the US is still reeling from tariffs hitting 114.73% to China. Is it a tie? Brazil's winning big with volume, but the US is holding ground with allies. China? They're calling the shots, keeping prices low with Brazil's supply. Wow, what a soybean showdown. That's intense, so let's lighten it up with two fun segments. First, why is China buying so many soybeans? We'll compare their meat craze to the top 3 meat-producing countries and break down how they use those beans. Then we'll dive into wild GMO soybean worries that'll make you laugh. All right, why is China importing a jaw-dropping 105 million tons of soybeans in 2024? That's like a mountain of beans taller than the Great Wall. It's all about their massive appetite for meat, especially pork. China's got 430 million pigs, more than the populations of the US and Brazil combined. Let's see how China's meat obsession stacks up against the top 3 meat-producing countries and break down what those soybeans are used for. China's the world's biggest soybean importer, buying 60% of global exports. 105 million tons in 2024 alone. Why? Their 1.4 billion people are eating more meat as incomes rise. Since 2000, per capita meat consumption jumped 32%, with pork leading at 30 kilograms per person yearly. That's a lot of dumplings. Feeding all those pigs, chickens, and cows needs protein, and soybeans are the go-to for animal feed. China's own soybean production is only 18 to 20 million tons, so they import the rest, mostly from Brazil, 73 million metric tons in 2023, and the US, 25% of imports. Plus, trade tensions push China to Brazil for cheaper beans. Sorry, US farmers. Let's compare China's meat craze to the top 3 meat producers in 2023. China's number 1, churning out 88 million tons of meat, 55 million tons of pork alone thanks to those 430 million pigs. The US is second with 52 million tons, heavy on beef, 12 million metric tons, and poultry, 22 million metric tons. Brazil's third at 28 million tons, leading in poultry, 14 million metric tons, and beef, 10 million metric tons. China's meat output dwarfs the others, so no wonder they need 105 million tons of soybeans to keep those pigs happy. Compare this with US soybean use, 49% exported, 51% domestic for feed and oil. So what does China do with 105 million tons of soybeans? Here's the breakdown. 80% goes to animal feed, mostly for pigs and poultry. Those 430 million pigs are hungry. Soybean meal, made by crushing beans, is protein-packed for livestock. Another 15% is crushed into soybean oil for cooking. Think stir-fries and fried dumplings. The last 5% becomes food like tofu, soy milk, or soy sauce, staples in Chinese diets. That's why Brazil's 73 million tons and the US's 25% share are so critical. China's soybean obsession is all about feeding their meat-loving nation. Those pigs don't feed themselves. Compared to the US and Brazil, China's meat production is massive, driving that 105 million ton import. Let's move from pig cheo to the next big drama. GMO soybean worries that'll have you laughing and scratching your head. So, why are people losing sleep over GMO soybeans? There are 2 big fears. First, some folks think eating GMO beans is like swallowing a science experiment. Will they mess with your body, like giving you super strength or worse, making you sick? A 2015 survey showed 57% of people doubted GMO safety, thinking they might cause allergies or long-term health issues. Second, others worry that GMO beans, with their tweaked DNA, will outgrow everything else, like super weeds or super beans taking over fields and throwing nature out of whack. Picture a soybean apocalypse where they crowd out corn or wheat, messing up the global ecosystem. Social media's buzzing. 32% of GMO posts from 2019 to 2021 were all danger mutant beans. Grab clips of protests or fields from Videvo to show this drama. It's like soybeans are plotting to rule the world. Are GMO soybeans harmful or eco-destroyers? Let's settle this. On health, the FDA, USDA, and World Health Organization say GMO soybeans are safe as regular beans. No allergies, no sickness, same nutrition. A 2013 study found 0 health risks after 20 years of GMO use. That mutant superpower stuff? Pure fiction, like soybeans starring in a Marvel movie. On the environment, there's a real debate. GMO beans boost yields by 22% and cut pesticide use by 8.3%, which is great for feeding China's 105 million ton demand. But critics worry about superweeds, plants that resist herbicides, popping up in 20% of U.S. fields by 2020. It's not an apocalypse, but it's a headache farmers manage with crop rotation. The world's split. 64% of scientists say GMOs are safe, but 43% of the public disagree per a 2020 Pew survey. It's a hot debate, like arguing if soybeans are heroes or villains. Who's all in on GMO soybeans? The U.S. is the champ, with 94% of its 49.3 million ton crop in 2023 genetically modified to zap pests and weeds. Brazil's close, with 90% of its 97.2 million tons, powering China's 73 million ton order. Argentina's at 80% GMO for their 4.5 million tons, and Canada, Paraguay, and South Africa are on Team GMO too. These beans are like superheroes, helping the U.S. and Brazil dominate exports. Who's saying no thanks to GMO soybeans? The European Union is super picky. France, Germany, and others ban growing GMO soybeans, though they import 72% GMO beans for animal feed, 7.2 million tons from the U.S. in 2023. China grows non-GMO soybeans domestically, 18 to 20 million tons, but imports 105 million tons of GMO beans for pigs and tofu. Russia and India also ban GMO soybean farming, citing health or eco-fears. They're like, keep those science beans away. How do they make these GMO soybeans? It's not like scientists inject seeds with a giant syringe. Sorry, no mad scientist vibes. They use a method called genetic engineering. Step 1, they pick a cool trait, like pest resistance from a bacterium like Bacillus thuringiensis or BT, or another plant. Step 2, they snip that gene, about 1 to 2% of the DNA, and insert it into soybean cells using a gene gun or bacteria as a delivery buddy. Step 3, those cells grow into plants with superpowers, like killing bugs or surviving weed killers. The rest of the DNA, 98%, stays pure soybean, so they're still beans, not aliens. No hidden secrets here. It's all transparent science, tested by the USDA. Animate a gene gun shooting sparkles into a soybean on Canva for laughs. Who's the mastermind behind GMO soybeans? Meet Bayer, a German company that bought Monsanto, the U.S. GMO giant, in 2018. Monsanto developed the first GMO soybeans in 1996, and now Bayer's Roundup Ready and BT soybeans dominate 94% of U.S. crops and 90% of Brazil's. They're the tech wizards, pushing pest-resistant seeds worldwide, though critics say they control too much of the seed market, 70% of U.S. soybeans. Grab lab footage from Videvo to show their science in action. Bayer's like the coach turning soybeans into trade war champs. GMO soybeans aren't alone. Other common GMO crops include corn, 88% of U.S. crops, 177 million tons in 2023, cotton, 95% in the U.S., canola, 90% in Canada, and sugar beets, 98% in the U.S. Potatoes and tomatoes? Yep, some are GMO. Think pest-resistant spuds or longer-lasting tomatoes. Grown in small amounts in the U.S. and Canada. Papaya in Hawaii is 80% GMO to fight viruses. It's like soybeans invited their veggie friends to the superhero party. Oh, GMO soybeans are just beans with a 1% DNA upgrade, not mutant monsters or eco-destroyers. They're safe, boost yields by 22%, and power the U.S. and Brazil's trade war wins. The debate's still spicy, but science says these beans are heroes, not villains. From China's soybean obsession to GMO drama, soybeans are stealing the show. Brazil's ruling with 97.2 million tons exported in 2023, thanks to China's 73 million ton order. The U.S. fights back with allies like the EU and Mexico buying 7.2 and 5.8 million tons, despite prices dropping to $9.95 a bushel in 2024. China's the chess master, controlling 60% of global soybeans for their pigs and tofu. Who's winning? Brazil's ahead, the U.S. is scrapping, and China's running the board. Drop your vote for the soybean champ in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more trade war craziness.